Effective questioning.
Effective. Does that make sense?
Essential.
I'm going to say essential to learning again.
I know what I want to say, I'm just trying to focus. I'm trying to say...
A key ingredient in helping children to really understand what they're doing.
An open question that doesn't always have the right answer.
Vital to expand children's minds.
Are all answers acceptable? Yes, they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so, because even when you get a wrong answer, it gives you an insight into what it is that the child hasn't understood.
My exception would be maths, where not all answers are acceptable, because if you get it wrong, it is very wrong.
You know, you could have a child that is finding it very, very hard to contribute in a class, and the fact that contribution is being made, that's massive progress, so it needs to be applauded.
I find the only answers that aren't acceptable are those that just prove they haven't listened to anything that's gone on in the class.
Are they focused on the questioning I'm asking, or have they just brought in something from somewhere where they're daydreaming of somewhere else?
The answer that a child has given you is in response to the question that you have given. So if you don't like the answer, it may well be that you haven't asked the correct question.
I've just got an eccentric bunch of children. It's really important that children feel that they can safely answer a question. They aren't going to feel that anyone's going to laugh.
Some children are better than others at taking risks. What we try to develop at South Farnham is the culture within the room that you can take a risk. No one will laugh at you, but have a go.
There will be children who initially find it very frightening to put their hand up. So quite a good idea is to get them to talk it through with someone else first.
I mean, the main strategy is saying well done when their first response, whether it's right or not quite right, is well done.
You have to have humility enough to be able to make mistakes yourself. And when you do them, you know, I know the teachers that will make mistakes on purpose, so the children can actually see that and see that they're human, you know. And as soon as you do that, more and more and more, you're creating a culture of it is okay to make mistakes.
It's also important that if, you know, someone begins to make fun of someone for not getting it right, or you just have to make it very clear that actually, no, of course, you know, everybody makes mistakes. Even Miss Gill makes mistakes, and you know, we all do it and we all learn from them.
You will know if you've got the spirit level right in your classroom. If a child says an answer and it's completely off beam and wrong, how many children laugh at them? And if the answer is none, you're bob on, you're spot on.
Yes, I do differentiate when I ask questions.
Differentiation's the cornerstone of all good teaching.
Knowing your class really, really well in the first instance, and then when you're planning, you may choose to plan specific questions for certain children.
Particularly in maths, you can very finely tune who you ask the question to.
And that's the skill of the teacher, being able to direct the questioning and direct appropriate questioning with all the different styles of questions that you can ask.
I think that's the thing, to make children feel comfortable about contributing to whatever you're doing.
I don't think there's such a thing as a question that a child can't answer. You have to manipulate the environment so that they can.
I tend not to do hands up to questions. I have a strategy that I picked up a few years ago where I have all the children's name in a pot, and it actually really, really assists in keeping children engaged and focused on task, because they don't know when you're going to pull the name out of the hat. That's not to say that I don't cheat sometimes.
The fact that a child will have their hand up, for me, shows that child's got confidence. Whether the question is right every time or whether it's wrong every single time.
The children enjoy the excitement of putting their hands up, but there are also times when I will deliberately ask children whose hands aren't up.
There's that very important point that you must have wait time. When you've asked the question, give the children time to think.
While they're listening to the question, they twiddle their thumbs, and then they get sometimes 30 seconds to think about it.
A tip somebody gave to me, another teacher, was sort of think, count in your head to 5 and then get a response.
Then if they know the answer, they put their thumbs up. If they're not sure, they do that. And if they think they don't know the answer, they do that.
Sometimes I'll do a sort of countdown, 3, 2, 1, and the children will give me a choral response.
As a teacher, you can decide whether you ask the children who are confident with the answer, or whether you want to find out about who's feeling insecure and what they think, or if you want to find out about misconceptions, you could ask the children with their thumbs down to have a guess.
And you do get those children that just want to please the teacher, and therefore their hand's constantly up, but that should be celebrated, because one time that child will get it right.
I think if children are misconceiving things, you wouldn't necessarily say you're wrong. You might say something along the lines of, that's interesting what you're saying, let's look at it another way.
What you mustn't do with misconceptions is to say, well, no, that's absolute rubbish. You know, don't waste my time.
So I would never dismiss anything, because to them, that's what the answer is, and they've contributed.
You know, wouldn't it be great if you went into a class every day and the first method of teaching that you had was the right one every time, and every single kid knew exactly what you were talking about? Wouldn't that be fantastic? But in reality, that's not the case.
I think the worst thing you could do would be to laugh, or let the children laugh. I mean, they do make mistakes.
In maths, I noticed that one of my children was adding numbers when we were meant to be multiplying. So, like, example was 5 times 3, and they were doing 5 add 3 is 8. So I modelled it, me doing it, so it wasn't the spotlight on the child. And I showed it, and I was like, and the children were like, no, it's not that, you're adding. And getting them to go, so the child goes, oh yeah, I get it, without the embarrassment.
Sometimes they've not heard. I once said to a child, did you mishear me? And he said, no, I think I mislistened. So sometimes they mislisten and they're not concentrating, and asking them a question can kind of pick them up on that and refocus it, and with any luck bring them back on track.
Right, well, misconceptions can be a very good way of making a teaching point, because what you would do is ask a supplementary question to that child. Why do you think that? Can you explain a bit more about how you've come to that conclusion? Can you tell us the method that you use to get there? And in that, some other children may also have that misconception, so you can use that as a teaching point.
Well, closed questions, open questions.
How did you do that? Why did that happen?
Lower order questions, the higher order questions, everything in between.
You have your rhetorical questions.
The inferential questions, critical thinking questions.
So what do you think, and why do you think, and how can you find out about?
I'm out.
I mean, some questions are just absolute recall of memory, like a times table fact. Sometimes you want to really think, and you're trying to expand their thinking skills.
If you just say, is 7 a prime number? The answer will be yes or no, and then you're still going to have to ask a supplementary question to find out whether it was a guess, whether there was a real understanding there. So you need to think carefully about how you question.
I ask quite a lot of follow-up questions. So if a child puts their hand up, or I choose them and they give me an answer, I'll quite often say, what makes you think that? Or what gives you that idea? Or how did you work that out?
I think really the way we're asking questions does boil down to the language we use. If you're asking what type questions, they're probably going to give you a straightforward answer. So what did you notice when this happened? If you're asking a why or a how type question, you are obviously wanting them to think more deeply about their answers and their response to it.
How you phrase a question is everything. You have to be reflective as a teacher yourself. I know sometimes where I can say something and halfway through I'm thinking, I don't understand it myself. How can children understand this?
Can you just give me the question again?
Bloom's taxonomy.
About what? I have a vague memory of seeing it.
Have I read a book on this? Not sure.
So there's different theories about questioning. One of them is Bloom's taxonomy, that we start off with kind of lower order, quite closed questioning, building up to the more analytical and comparative questions that are really expanding children's minds.
Much of the questioning that goes on in classrooms, research has shown, stays at the lower levels of this hierarchy of learning skills, stays within the knowledge and the comprehension band. In other words, the teacher imparts, the children go have understood and go and do something that hopefully shows they've understood.
It does help to have started with the sort of lower order questions, the recall, to help them be secure in what they know and what they understand, and then to take them from there.
You're probably asking them something like, what did you see happen? What answer did you get? And then you're going into, how did you get that answer? Why did that happen?
And then scaffolding them up to more analytical, longer answers where they've got to contrast, compare, analyse, and really challenging their thinking.
You can often move them on into more challenging areas by prompting them or giving them an alternative, or saying, playing devil's advocate, saying something that you know they don't believe and forcing them to contradict you.
But it's really key to keep asking those questions. If we want good thinkers and learners, we need to ask the second and the third questions.
What can go wrong with questioning?
You could get an answer from left field. That's happened to me many a times. But it's sometimes those left field answers that take the learning in completely different directions, which you need.
I was teaching the children about idioms, and I was asking the children, did they know any idioms? We were going through the obvious raining cats and dogs, and one of my children put her hand up, and this was a very intelligent child, really bright, lovely child, and she said, I think I've got one, but it might be a little bit rude.
One of the best ones I had was in answer to the question, what is the Mississippi? A child responded, a teacher, and it took me quite a long time, and I remember staring at the child, a teacher, and he said, yeah, Mississippi.
So all the children were like, what is it, what is it? To this point, I had to let her say it. And she said, the dog's bollocks?
Always expect an answer, never ask rhetorical questions. It's just opening yourself up for needless grief.
I think the worst thing is when you get nothing. When you ask a question and you get the answer, dunno.
You know, if you've got a child that's desperate to join in, that really, you know, has been waiting all week and has been encouraged by a different teacher or a different class to share their opinions and ideas, and they answer and they've taken weeks to do it, and the answer and it's wrong, and that teacher says, oh, sorry, next. And there's a massive opportunity gone. So when is the next question that child's going to answer? Who knows?